Another thing that people do wrong is they jump in, they start learning more difficult chords when they should be learning easier chords. They don't know what order to learn them in.
Hi Brian, I've been thinking about guitar lessons for a long time. I tried a few times over the years, but quit because I have short fingers. Do you think there is any hope for me? Jim. Hi Jim, if you had a short penis, would you give up on sex too? Brian, YYCPG. Practice hard, practice smart, no excuses.
Be true to the YYCPG crew. Practice hard, practice smart, no excuses. Friends, when you are new to the guitar, one of the big pitfalls I see for so many beginners, they don't know where to start. So when they look at their 15 beginner chords, sometimes they start on the wrong chords that are much more difficult than some of the other ones, and they get discouraged and they quit. When you start on guitar, you want to line up as many positive things in a row so you don't get discouraged and keep with it. So over my many years of teaching, I have my own method of what order to learn the 15 beginner open chords in, and I'm going to show you that today. We have our 15 beginner open chords, right? A minor, A7, B7, C, C7, D, D minor, D7, E, E minor, E7, F, G, G7. Oh God, try saying that in one breath. So the first strategy we do with people is we say, okay, the ones with the least amount of fingers might be a good place to start, but let's point out the most difficult chords, okay? So our most difficult chords is an F chord. That's the hardest out of the 15. I think everyone out there who's been playing guitar, who's played guitar for a while, will agree that F, also called something else, usually it's like the effing chord, is the most difficult. The reason for that is you're pressing down on two strings with one finger. I have detailed lesson videos that I'll put up in the links at the end of this video that you can go to, especially with strategies if you're having trouble with the F. So the F, when I teach people, the F is the last of the 15 beginner chords we look at, okay? The second last is the G7, okay? That can be intermingled with the B7. The B7 uses 4 fingers. It's one of the ones I leave till the end. It's a very popular chord though. You hear it in Folsom Prison Blues. It's one of the chords in that one. The G7 has a bit of a weird stretch to it. That's a little bit difficult for beginners as well. So, B7, G7, and F are the last 3 when I'm teaching, okay? If you can mind my writing. You know what I'm saying? The first chord I like to teach people, we're going to start with an E minor chord, okay? E minor. So when I'm teaching people, I'm like, okay, hey, you're playing, okay? You only need 2 fingers, right? Second finger, 2nd fret on the A string, 3rd finger, 2nd fret on the D string. And guys, when you're playing, you want to pick your chords, okay? Now I have detailed videos about that, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But another bad habit people will do is they'll be like, hey man, I want to start strumming right away. That's not good, because if you start strumming and you're not getting the chords clean, you're reinforcing a bad habit, wasting further time and causing more chaos and confusion. So when you're playing, pick each note in the chord. Because if a note's not ringing properly, it can't hide. Now, once you have your E minor chord down, and guys, one of the keys in the beginning for the guitar, it can be frustrating, is just stick with it every day, 10 minutes every day, okay? So, you know I make a lot of jokes about people coming up with excuses to not practice, but come on, if you can't find 10 or 15 minutes in a day to practice every day, there's a serious problem. It's just BS. Come on, let's just be honest. Let's be real. No fluff. Let's just be honest here. There we go. There I am. Isn't that a little bit better? So once you have your E minor chord down, you go to your E major, or E, okay? Once you've been playing for a while, you don't say, oh, play an A major chord. We just say an A. We know that means major, okay? But then your first finger is going to go on the 1st fret on the G string. So all you're doing is adding a finger. So once you have that chord down, and I often tell students, right, start using your ears when you're learning these chords. We get into theoretical reasons why a chord is major and why a chord is minor. Major chords sound happy, minor chords sound sad, right? Major, I'm happy, man. Okay? Winning a lottery commercial. Going to a funeral. Minor's very sad. Okay? So I tell students out in the beginning, listen, minor sounds sad, major sounds happy. Okay? And we just move everything down one string. We have an A minor chord. First chord in House of the Rising Sun, folks. So if you can play an E major, you should be able to get an A minor. E minor. Look at me, I'm ambidextrous. That's talent. E. Look at that. Hey, how many guitar teachers can use both hands? Actually, let's not talk about that. And then we have an A minor, okay? When people get the A minor down, the next one I show them is a C. So C, this is where a lot of people mess up. They keep their fingers back here when they're playing a C. All you gotta do is you can scoot these fingers up, keep them in the frets, but you scoot them up a bit. So when you do the stretch with your third finger to the third fret on the A string, right? Scoot up a bit. Makes that stretch a lot easier. A lot of beginners are like, hey man, I can't get that C, I can't. But they got these two fingers down back here and then they're trying to do that. Don't want to do it. You gotta scoot it up, man. Okay? Scoot it up. A little bit of space there, scoot it up. So then from a C we go to a C7. Okay? But a C7 is quite easy because all you gotta do is take your pinky finger and add it to the third fret on the G string. Okay, so it is a 4-finger chord, but if you can play your C, then you can add your pinky. It's really not a big deal. You'll find on guitar that your pinky is the hardest finger to train, but you can train it, you can beat it into submission. So your D chord, this can be a little bit challenging and people need to be patient with this one. Okay, your first finger, second fret on the G string, second finger, second fret on the high E, and then your third finger comes across to the third fret on the B string. It goes over the rainbow, so to speak, okay? So it's going to take a bit of practice. For most of you starting out, me included, you'll get this. So it's going to take some practice, but again, if you do it every day, I find that's where the magic happens. But if you don't have the chords perfectly right away and you're starting out, just be patient. 10, 15 minutes a day, put the guitar away. I used to have so much trouble with the D. You know what I used to do? I actually learned how to bar. I did what's called a bar. I'd bar these 3 strings, and with my middle finger, I'd press down on the third fret on the B string. I'd never seen that done before, but this was a modification I did. So a lot of people might see me play that. I can still play it like this, no problem. But back many, many years ago, I used to prefer playing it like that. I found it easier. That was a modification for me. There's no rules against it. It worked. Okay, so a D minor, okay. Your first finger goes the first fret on the high E string. Scoot it up. You don't want to press down right on the fret, but take advantage of the space. Then the less you have to stretch with your other fingers, okay? People start down here and they're like, oh my God, I gotta move my fingers, what's going on? Scoot it up. Middle finger, second fret on the G, third finger, third fret on the B string. Sad. Very sad. Now we're going to take a moment, we're going to talk about the G major chord. The basic fingering is like this, the most common fingering, but then you can finger it like this. For beginners that are struggling or kids, I'll get them to play it like this. Okay, again, I have detailed videos on this that you can check out. I'll post it at the end of the video. But the G, I like to get people playing it like this as soon as possible. The reason for that is when people do that, if you play a lot of songs where you jump to what's called a C add 9. You ever heard a song like that before? Yeah, it's very common. You hear that all the time. G to a C add 9. People call it the cheater C. There's a reason it's a C add 9, but we're not going to get into that today. Okay? To go from an A minor to an A is pretty easy. Okay? There's different ways you can play an A chord or an A major chord. Again, I get really in depth into that in another video. You can check that out. But Okay, the way I like to play it is I put my pinky, especially if you have big hands, big catcher's mitts hands. I always like to prefer this fingering. I put my pinky down on the 2nd fret on the B string. But there are alternative fingerings. Some people like using their first 3 fingers. I don't have huge hands, but my hands are big enough. I prefer this way. Now, an alternative fingering is 1st finger, 2nd fret on the G string, middle finger, 2nd fret on the D string, and your 3rd finger, 2nd fret on the B string. I don't like that fingering, but it works for some people, okay? So again, guys, I have more detailed videos on how to do that. This is just talking about the order. So you have the least amount of frustration when you're learning beginner chords. If you start on a G7 or a B7 or an F, you're going to have problems. You're probably going to hate the guitar very quickly, especially on an F. Now we have an A. Okay, now of course an A, you can also learn it down here when you learn your A minor chord. That's up to you. Once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy, okay? Now, the next thing after A, we get into a few more 7th chords. We already tackled the C7 because you're just adding your pinky finger to the C, okay? So after the A, we can learn an A7, okay? Real simple, really simple chord. Again, it's a 2-finger chord. I often tell beginners 7th chords sound very, very bluesy. So minor, sad. Major, happy. Look, I'm happy. And 7th chords, bluesy. Okay? So your A7, 2nd finger, 2nd fret on the D, 3rd finger, 2nd fret on the B string. So you're going to have the open G string in between, and you pick it. Now you got your A7. E7, super easy. If you can play your E major chord, all you have to do is take your ring finger off. Again, it's a 2-finger chord. It's a little bit of that bluesy sound. The next one is a D7, and why I position it here, I'm going to show you, okay? This is why I put it in this order. So a D7 chord, okay? 1st finger, 1st fret on the B string, middle finger, 2nd fret on the G, 3rd finger, 2nd fret on the high E string. Starting on the D string, I'm picking it. Okay? Bit of that bluesy sound again. Well, here's the interesting thing. Once you know the D7 chord, move it up 2 strings. 1, 2. Now we have a B7, and you're going to put your pinky on the 2nd fret on the high E string. So, kind of like when you got the D7, you kind of have half a B7 almost too, in another way of looking at it, okay? Then, of course, we get into the G7. It's got an interesting stretch there. So your first finger is on the 1st fret on the high E, 2nd finger, 2nd fret on the A string, and your 3rd finger, 3rd fret in the low E. So there is a bit of a stretch there. And a lot of beginners aren't comfortable with that. That's not a chord you want to start out with. You know, I did a video a few months ago of, I found my mother's guitar instructional book. My mom took lessons back in like 1981, so it's over 40 years ago. Oh my God. And the chords in there, the 3rd chord you learned was an F. F is a very tough chord. Okay, that's the one I like for people to leave till the end. If you're starting out on guitar, and especially if you're taking lessons and learning out of a book, if you start with an F chord as your 3rd chord, you're not going to be playing guitar for very long, man. You are going to hate the world and hate life and hate people and hate the guitar. So I always get people to leave the F till the very end. It is a challenging chord. Again, I have videos. I made a specific video on extra strategies that people don't know about to help them save a lot of time when it comes to learning how to play the F chord properly and not get that. Okay? So guys, that is my take after years and years of teaching guitar. Another thing that people do wrong is they jump in, they start learning more difficult chords when they should be learning easier chords. They don't know what order to learn them in or whatever. So when you start out E minor, every few days, if you're getting the chord down, or at least memorize one chord a week. Your beginnings, you should start, when you start your practice routine, at some point in your practice routine every day, you should be reviewing the chords. Okay? Try and stick to it every day. And remember, guys, keep the comment suggestions coming. Check out my Patreon. I have a new level strictly for guitar players with a lot of bonuses and extras. And comment below, and remember, practice hard, but practice smart, which is what I'm showing you. I don't want you to make all the mistakes I've made. No excuses. We'll see you soon.